Dice, yeah, ay, ay.
Today's conversation goes where most people avoid, but in a way that feels human, curious, and surprisingly freeing. Oscar's guest, Pepper Cat, shares her journey from news producer to adult industry creator and what she learned about intimacy, honesty, and connection along the way. This wonderful conversation isn't about shock, shame, or adult content. It's about understanding ourselves, our desires, and the stories we tell behind closed doors. If you've ever wondered what's really underneath curiosity, connection, or fantasy, give this episode a listen. It just might be the adult content your ears really need. This is the FYI I Am Damaged podcast.
Meet Logan, the strong-minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strength in their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within.
Peppercat, thank you for joining me on another episode of FYI I Am Damaged. Before Spicy Spectrum and Design Your Dream Girl, who were you? What did you believe about sex, desire back then?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Before I got into the adult industry and I started my adult podcast, I was a news producer. So I know you said you were from New York. Actually, I worked at a news station in New York and a couple of stations throughout the US. And I produced nighttime, daytime, and midday news. So I was basically the person who wrote the scripts for the news anchors and the reporters. And whenever you hear the anchors say that we have breaking news, or if you see them reading a teleprompter, that's what I did. So I would be talking in their ears, counting them down for the shows, telling them if they messed up something, or so that's what I did. I was a news producer for about 2.5 years, and then I transitioned obviously into the adult industry, and that's
The news was too exciting for you?
It was very depressing, to be honest. It's a very, you hear a lot of stories, it's actually I'm not saying it's the same as law enforcement, but because we hear about things before the public does, like stabbings or killings or kidnapping, it wasn't always negative news, but you do hear a lot of that. So part of that was that, part of it was the pay, part of it was the environment. It's a very type A environment, so you have to have the personality for it, and it just my personality didn't match. I was a great producer. I mean, my staff and I got along, but it was I wanted something more exciting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and more flexible. So
When you made the move from producing news to becoming visible in the adult space, what changed most in how you saw yourself, not just how others saw you?
when I moved into the adult industry, had a chance to really explore my sexuality. So, I mean, obviously I did that in person, like with my partners, but it was just a different form of exploring my sexuality, being comfortable in my skin. And obviously people see you, so being confident with who I am. And what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
That what changed most in how you saw yourself and not just how others saw you?
Yeah, and I saw myself as a human. You know, as humans, a lot of times we like to just show the light parts of ourselves, and we like to show the parts that are acceptable, but we don't always tap into parts that we hide, or that I guess you would call it the shadow self of ourselves. And so it allowed me to show, or to really explore the parts that I had not addressed, or parts that I've always hid, you know, growing up just being ashamed of masturbating, for example, or ashamed of having certain thoughts. And when you work in the adult industry, you are faced with thoughts and your sexuality in a way that you don't know, that in a way that not everyone has a chance to address. And so that really allowed me to explore my sexuality and being comfortable with who I am.
Is it now? I always do like self audit, self analyzation. I'm sure you've done that in your time. Does it? I don't know if it gave you the same kind of force, not well, kind of not foresight, but I don't know what the right word is. But when you have a discussion with somebody, you go, oh, okay, like you kind of see something different. Like, okay, you're kind of holding something back. And do you ever see that a lot in people, or you just keep to yourself with what? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do. I actually feel like a lot of people hide themselves, and especially with doing this line of work, you find that people live double lives. Like people aren't, they're not well, some are lying, but a lot of people are hiding parts of themselves. A lot of people are ashamed of their sexuality. And I do see, just based on meeting people, or even people who give me backlash. To me, there's a part of some people where I make them uncomfortable because they haven't addressed themselves, and they are projecting the shame they feel on themselves onto me because I'm so open about it. And I do feel like, there are a lot of people who wish they were open about what they like, or that they were more vocal, and that they just don't say anything because we still live in a society where people judge, or people may laugh at what someone's into, because it's not common for a lot of people to openly talk about kinks or fetishes or what turns them on, because it's still taboo for certain people.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, you talk a lot about male loneliness as an epidemic. From where you sit, what does loneliness look and sound like in the messages, requests, and interactions that you get?
Yeah, actually just spoke to someone last night, but yeah, I about that very topic. And so a couple of years ago, when I first started doing phone sex and camming, most of my customers, and they still are older men or men, some of them partner, I mean, obviously, but I started to have men come to me and open up to me about having struggles dating, or just how the world is changing, and them having trouble finding women, and how difficult it's been. And so a lot of them feel comfortable opening up to me because I'm not a therapist. I would refer to myself as because they do feel comfortable opening up to me. And so I have come across a lot of men who have been vulnerable. I had one last night tell me how difficult it was for him, or it is for him. And that's not uncommon. And so oftentimes in our industry, we see things before the public knows about it. So before people started talking about male loneliness on the internet and all that, I saw it. I didn't know there was a name for it, but I did see an increased number of men come to me being open about feeling some form of loneliness or having trouble dating, and how that's impacted their life.
And how hard is it, or did you take to it to kind of pivot to be like an unofficial, you know, open ear to them, unofficial kind of therapist, or just, a sounding board to them to say, hey, look, so were you in the early stages of that entertaining it once you were exposed to it, and just kind of like avoiding it, and then you just took to it? So how was
A
that?
lot of
No, go ahead.
a lot of them naturally just open up. Like, for the most part, most of my interaction with them, it is sexual, but a lot of them either want to talk first, they want to talk first and get warmed up, and then it'll gradually go into them opening up. And it's just something that they just decide to tell me on their own. I don't usually ask because I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, but it's usually something that people just feel comfortable just randomly bringing up to me. And I don't know that they're going to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, and I'm not uncomfortable with it. I actually majored in psychology. So, I mean, I'm not
You were
saying that I
ready.
use,
You were ready and you didn't
yeah,
even know it.
yeah. I've had experience with knowledge of counseling, but I mean, I'm not a therapist or anything like that, but I don't have a problem with people opening up to me because I've always been curious about people, and I've always been, I would say, interested in healing. And I would describe myself as a sexual healer for some people, who come to me to feel more comfortable being themselves.
That every form of good intimacy always brings a kind of flavor of healing. So that's, that's commendable because I'm guessing you probably deal with a lot of guys who don't have that outlet. So going through that, doing that is just they feel a little bit more open to do so. And hopefully that kind of gradually pushes them to be curious about being open more. I always try to do that in the space that I'm in and the men that I come across. I get vulnerable about what I went through to let them know, like, hey, look, if I'm standing here in front of you, not crumbling, telling you what I've been through, then guess what? You could do that with other people, regardless
Hmm.
of what their judgment is of you. But then it's like, okay, you're judging me, then what are you going through that you're not processing, that you're not seeing within? So
Hmm.
no, it's a good jumping off point for a lot of men who need to get curious about healing. And that's great. And having that comfortable intimacy it's a good feeling.
Hmm.
Gets the
Yeah.
oxytocin or whatever it is, pumping.
Yeah.
Now, when you strip away the specific kinks and scripts, what emotional themes do you notice men are really reaching for? Validation, safety, power, softness,
Hmm.
being heard or something
Hmm.
else? Like, what have you encountered?
Most men, from my observation, just want to be seen from what I see. I mean, I'm obviously not a man, but from my perspective of what I've observed is they just want what they like to be understood. They don't want to be judged. The moment, even if they hear hesitation in my voice, if they do tell me something that they're into, they'll just shut down or hang up. So, I mean, most of them just want to be understood and feel desired. And there is a form of validation that a lot of them come to me for, validation that what they're doing is not wrong or what they're thinking is not wrong. Yeah. I mean, and even if you want to go into details, I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is because it's like I've had another individual, GT. He
Mhm.
works with a company that gets individuals to kind of take control of, porn addiction and things of that nature, but it more focused on when a man is dealing with something like that, what are they experiencing? What are they processing? What stories are they
Mhm.
telling themselves that don't serve them to be like, okay, I need to get better. And what's
Mhm.
the negative part of me? There's nothing wrong with porn. It's just, okay, there's nothing wrong with the adult industry. You know, of course, you have the sensitive, you have the extreme, and then you got the middle that everybody's used to. And
Right.
a lot of people kind of overcorrect with all the stuff that they're going through and not processing. And I mean, yeah, from your standpoint, I would love to hear every detail you want, to display without, of course, telling anybody's name or anything like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that people could get an idea of if I'm this dude on the other end of the line with someone similar to whoever I'm interviewing, they're like, wait, okay, I like this because of that. And, they really need to discover, say, hey, look, I'm just a regular guy. I need more connection. I need, in all different type of spaces. So whatever your
Mhm.
experience that you've had, I would love for them to get an understanding of that.
Yeah. I mean, so from what I see, I mean, if you want to give me give an example, I mean, a lot
Pepper,
of
you got
men,
carte blanche.
yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, are insecure about their penis size. For example, like that's a big thing. That I wasn't. I mean, you always hear people like or see things online about penis size, but I mean that is true. I mean, and that is an example, and I'm sure it's something deeper, in terms of how they identify their manhood based on the size of their penis. In terms of them, a lot of them, yeah, I mean, are insecure about that. I mean, he told me to put aside kinks or fetishes, so I'm trying to think of things that are not
I mean,
related
look,
to
if you
that
gotta,
area.
if you got to, you got to. But I
Hmm.
have a quick question, like, because I
Hmm.
heard from a friend, and I'm like, nah, that can't be true. Like, women who do like the OnlyFans thing, he's like, no, they do. They list it. I'm like, why? That they list like, okay, if you pay them, they'll do a penis rating.
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
is that a thing?
Oh yes, that's very common.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So
so there's penis ratings, and I would say that's a form of validation. So it's either validating that they have a large penis, or they meet the standard that they think women enjoy, or it's a validation that they don't. So they really want to know if their penis is big enough, or is it really small? Or some of them pay me to talk about their small penis, like they want me to laugh or humiliate them, because that's a way of them taking back control of being humiliated for their small penis, but they get to control the narrative with me. And sometimes that is in a form of humiliation. So I mean, there's so many forms of like the penis thing. And honestly, too, I think too, part of that is that I'm gonna be honest, a lot of women lie to men in the bedroom. So some women are just not honest with being satisfied with a man. So they just want us to be honest, like, hey, like, do you think my penis size is big enough for you? Or is it, small? Or would it
am I
satisfy
half
you?
horse? Go to 23andMe, check your genetics. Am I half horse? What has surprised you the most about what men want versus the stereotypes about male desire? So I guess this kind of will continue the conversation, but what has surprised you the most with all of that? Like, is it with all the men needing validation or the humiliation aspect, like you mentioned? But what do
Hmm.
you see the most?
And so what I've seen is that, which I don't think is a problem. A lot of men do lead with sex, and I think when people say, oh, a man shouldn't lead, with sex, I think for me, I think we should just be honest. I mean, for me, I don't think that's anything wrong with that. I think there's a way to address it, to, make sure no one's harming anyone or boundaries are being crossed. But I think we have to be honest in that men do think with their penis. I mean, it's true, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as we're just being honest about it. And I mean, that was one thing that I've noticed. And two, also, I don't think they're, from seeing what people are into, I don't think there's any good or bad kink, as long as it's consensual, even if it's extreme, even though I may not be into it, or I don't want to do it. If someone's not harming anyone between two people and they're having fun and they're being safe, there is no good or bad kink. So that's what I've learned too, because prior to this, I did judge people who were into certain things. And then when I started to experiment with my customers, I mean, it's just what some people are into. And then I've also noticed too, finally, is that a lot of things that, at least with men, what they're into, it always goes back to something in their lives, or something that triggered something that made them into something. For example, I'm not in contact with this guy anymore. He was into sneezing, right? And so he would call me because he didn't feel comfortable indulging in sneezing activities with his partners in person. And he told me that he got into sneezing because one time he was having sex and his partner accidentally sneeze and her pussy
The
like
grip.
clenched.
Yeah,
And that's
gotcha.
how he got into teasing. And like he was in college and he would call me
Okay.
to do fantasies, but stuff like that, like, things, people don't just not get into something out of nowhere. It's always something that triggers a thought, even if someone's not conscious about it. So that's something too that I learned. And I'm sure that's not exclusive to men. I mean, I'm sure women too, but I mean, in terms of my customers, that's what I saw too, is that it was always something that they were into. I've had men who are into incest fantasies, and a lot of that comes from a lot of them being violated by their parents. And that's how they deal with it. That's how they take back their power, is having a fantasy where they can control it. And from the outside looking in, some people may look at that and be disgusted, with how they handle it. But I just see it as someone trying to process it. And if they feel comfortable with me being open about it and trusting me with their darkest confessions and how they deal with it, then so be it. And everyone can't do what I do. Everyone can't sit and hear about somebody being raped and then they want to do a fantasy about that, but
No,
that's why they come to
I
me.
get you.
So,
I
but yeah,
get you.
those are examples of.
No, and it's very
Yeah.
interesting because it's like, and me with my humor, I'm just thinking like the neighbors probably like, oh, here's a bunch of sneezing, they're at it again. But it's a fair point. It's a fair point to people who are quick to judge and to say, instead of leading with something negative with someone, especially another man who is not forthcoming with his feelings and things like that, or their significant other, and say, hey, okay, you found something, found a magazine, you found their bookmarks, you went through their history, and it's like, why, you're disgusting, why do you watch this? It's very funny, it's a next door neighbor, and I heard the couple arguing, and I think that's what happened. And the last thing I heard before it went quiet is like, I can't believe you watching this.
Hmm.
But it may show that they're not at that level to ask, like, okay, if this is something that I don't agree with, why are you into it? What
Exactly.
is triggering that? Well, not triggering, but what is prompting that? And maybe did you not tell me something that you've gone through? I feel
Hmm.
that's the proper conversation to have,
Absolutely.
especially between couples. A wife can't really, and even then, if the man can't do that to his wife either, I don't want to make this one
Hmm.
sided, but men's mental health is something that's really a passion of mine, and because of what I've went through, gone
Hmm.
through a lot of things, and I've released a lot of stuff, still processing. And to be seen and for somebody to be curious to be that you're heard, and then you're being heard, then that kind of, it changes the tone,
Right.
and it makes a person more open. And I've done it so many times that, like, I don't mind talking about what I've been through. So to get others to do that, I really want to get that ball moving. And hearing your, like I said again, and I'll probably say it a whole bunch of times, hearing your perspective, people be like, oh, what's the weirdest thing? What's this? What's that? And it's like, it goes a little bit deeper,
It is deeper.
and yeah. And so I don't know if there's any curious stories that you may have heard to be like, I hope they're doing better, or
Hmm.
things like that. So if there's any like side conversation, or have you ever had to call like anything in an emergency sort of situation? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I do. Some sites allow age play, and a lot of guys, and I don't know. I'm not, from what I've observed. Now, I'm not saying if it's true or not, but from what I observe, a lot of people who do age play, they need to call. Like they need to release, or else other people are the outlets. Now, I know some people may disagree, but I'm on the front lines and I don't know these men in real life, but I do know that some of them do need to call. And so one time I got a call from this guy and I heard someone in the background, like a child, and I contacted the company and they contacted the police. Now they couldn't tell me what happened after that, but yeah, like if I suspect something, even if I hear something in the background, or if you tell me things and it sounds a little bit too real and not a fantasy, I contact the company and they call the police because they are required to. Yeah. So yeah, oh yeah, and I will call if I'm camming and I suspect something is off. I contact the company. So yeah, it's been some cases.
Oh, good for you, and thank you for that. A lot of people would rather bury their head in the sand than say, well, okay, it'll work itself out. When a lot of times that takes decades.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
now, switching gears, design your dream girl lets people script a fantasy experience. What do you learn about a person, not just sexually, but emotionally, when they describe their ideal scenario in detail?
I learned that it's something that obviously turns them on. And it's something that either they want to try out that they've always thought about. And that typically happens where they have a fantasy that they want to explore, or it's something that they have always done. And it's something that just helps to regulate them. It helps to clear their mind if they have a fantasy and they want to do it with me. A lot of people, when it comes to what I do with Design Your Dream Girl, if I have a cam show, for example, or a phone call where they want a fantasy, a lot of men call me before important meetings or if they have something of importance. And when we do the fantasy, it helps to clear their mind and not think about whatever they're thinking about for the day. It helps them to have a clear mind prior to. Yeah. So that's,
Okay, so
yeah.
more of a mental release rather than a physical.
Mhm. Or both. But yeah, but yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, I mean, it does help to clear their
I'm
mind to
saying the
not
dude in
be.
the dude in the meeting. I'm sure he's probably like, well, hopefully he has a door closed.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, yeah. One time I have a funny story. One time, I was camping with this guy. You know how there's cubicles, but the ceiling is not covered, so you have your coworkers, but the wall, but
The
like
high
you can still talk to
cubicles or
them.
the low ones?
The high one. So he
Gotcha.
was masturbating on camera, right?
In
And
the
so,
office?
hmm but like with the door closed, but like his coworker, can still talk to him, like, from their side. So I think she was calling him for something and he was talking to me and she was telling him to come here and he said, I'm coming. And when he said, I'm coming, he came and it was so funny. I was not,
It's
she didn't
funny.
know what
It's
was going
funny.
on, but I just thought that was so crazy how he said he was coming. He actually came on the phone with me on camera
That's
and she was
hilarious.
calling him. And then I just broke character on camera because I thought that was something that would happen out of a
Yeah.
movie or a TV show or something.
Guys,
But
be
yeah.
careful at work. That's
Yeah,
all I gotta
yeah,
say.
close the door. Usually they do close the door. Sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't know if they share computers, but some of them come on the keys and it's like it makes you wonder, like, like where where
Like,
certain objects have been.
don't go to Jim's office.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish between fantasy as avoidance and fantasy
Mhm.
as a tool for self knowledge or healing?
Yeah. Yeah, I do make porn and I do adult work and I'm a strong believer that there's a healthy way to do things and there are unhealthy ways to do things. I do think just like candy, alcohol, weed, that someone can misuse porn or depend on camming. I don't think people should replace an actual girlfriend or replace someone in real life and use us all the time. I think our services is something that you should use in a healthy way or else you'll be addicted or you won't make connections in the real world. So, I mean, I'm a strong believer in that. I mean, I watch porn, but I don't depend on that as like my partner, online. And so I do think that lines do get blurred. And I often find that usually from what I've seen, it happens with younger men, like Gen Z slash millennial, just because I feel like we all grew up with technology. But yeah, I don't think anyone should be replacing total intimacy all the way with a cam model or anything like that.
So
I don't think
when
that's healthy at
if they're
all.
focusing like too much on it, it's like, hey, it's a good thing to know when to pull it back before it
Hmm.
gets a little too much and somebody calls you on it. So it's a good thing for individuals to deal with, and say, hey, look,
Hmm.
is this? I like to say, when people get curious about that, I say, okay, understand something, then ask yourself this: Are you serving it, or is it serving you?
Hmm.
And when you really look at it, then then it's like, okay, if it's not serving you, then you got to switch it up. You got to pull it back,
Right.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I even get some customers who will say, "Hey, like I know that I haven't contacted you. I just noticed my habit, of me doing it too much. I just needed to take a break." And then they'll, cam or they have a day where they'll do it and then where they won't. They come up with a schedule where it's not every day, but it's something where they do like once a week or bi-weekly or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I've had men admit that they've overused platforms and that they needed to take a little break.
That's commendable to them. Do you give them their props for doing that? Like, just say, hey, good, glad you're getting in control of your life. I mean,
Mhm.
I've,
Yeah, yeah. I don't pressure them to come back. I mean, if they're ready, they can. But yeah.
no, awesome.
Hmm.
Now, you often lean into vulnerability on your own show. What have you learned about where genuine vulnerability and performance blurs both for creator and for consumer? When a listener writes to you saying, "I'm scared of my own desires," what's the first thing you want them to know or question before they label themselves as something negative?
I mean, I always let them tell me what it is. Like, I always ask questions. Like, kind of when you were mentioning the thing where you heard your neighbors talking about porn, and I always ask them questions about, they don't, why they're scared to voice what they are into. Do they feel like they would be a harm to others or themselves? Yeah, I mean, I usually just ask questions out of curiosity as to what they're into, why they got into what they're into, and why do they feel if they're ashamed of it. But yeah, I mean, I do come across men who are scared of their desires, or they may question why they're into something, or yeah, I mean, that's how I handle it. Like, I'm just curious. I lead with curiosity. I don't try to judge them for what they're into, and more so just being a listening ear. And a lot of times that's just what they want, is someone to ask and understand why they're into what they're into. So that's how I handle it.
I don't know. I could kind of see like a cam therapist thing,
Hmm.
going on that you can do in some sexy way, and some, oh my god, guys are probably just like, wait, I could talk to her while like looking at her, and then just like,
Hmm.
I think there's a niche there for you.
Yeah,
And then with your
yeah.
background in psychology and everything like that, but yeah, I mean, hey.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, if someone is using adult content heavily and suspects it's tied to loneliness or shame, what's one honest, grounded reflection you'd invite them to do to kind of counteract that?
Mm.
What do you like to ground yourself and do, and
Hmm.
like, I guess, share with people? Because a lot of people like to share their mantras, their what they do
Hmm.
to relax and all that stuff. So what is your go-to, and what do you tell individuals, or what would you tell them?
Yeah, what I would tell them is to check in with themselves to make sure they're not harassing a cam model because they got too attached, which I've experienced, or just to check in with themselves to make sure they're not confusing fantasy with reality reality, because sometimes they do. So that's what I would tell them. Now, some people don't like to hear the truth. Like, I always ask them, do you want to hear what you want me to tell you, or do you really want to hear the truth? And I always give them the option. But what I would tell them is to kind of check in to make sure they're not diving in too deep to get lost with the fantasy.
And when doing these fantasies and scripted situations, do you lead with like a disclaimer to let them know, say, hey, look, X, Y, and Z, because I wouldn't know what would preface that. But do you do that?
Oh yeah, so I always go over boundaries. I tell them my boundaries, they tell me mine or theirs. And I make sure, like, in my profiles, like, this is a fantasy fulfillment. This is something that, maybe you've thought about and you want to fantasize it with me. I always emphasize fantasy because there are some people who spend time online and sometimes you have to remind them that it's just a fantasy. Um, but yeah, a big part of that is just boundaries. And also, most people know, like on like campsites and phone sex and OnlyFans, that this is a fantasy, and they find out when they have to pay. So yeah, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah,
it is
that's a
it is a
reality.
reminder.
Yeah.
So that it is that they are paying for an experience just for a couple of hours or 2 minutes or however long they need.
Now, you're building a brand in a space that is heavily judged. What personal boundaries or ethical lines do you hold that help you stay mentally and emotionally safe while doing this work? So, switching the focus on you. So, what do you do for yourself after you're done for the day and just to keep yourself just grounded and understanding what you go through, what you have heard and
Hmm.
processing. So, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah, yeah, I do hear a lot of heavy things, and I'm almost like it's almost normal to hear certain things. And so prior to even taking calls, I always work out. I always do meditation, things to just kind of mentally prepare myself to be neutral, which you need doing this. And afterwards, I take a walk. I mean, I don't, because I know a lot of people may think, oh, like, do you think about sex all day and stuff like that? No, like I have my activities that I enjoy doing outside of what I do just to have a balance. And I make sure to just take care of myself. I get my nails done or get get a massage, just do things to take care of myself and to not always be in the world of the adult world because you can get consumed by it. Just I mean, I have social media, so try to make sure I don't always check my notifications too and just kind of stay grounded that way to
That's great.
protect myself.
You do come off as a grounded person. This is my first time meeting you, and it looks like you do stick to that, and that's an awesome thing because we always tend to kind of go overboard into what we do and things like that. So it's great to see that, it is normal to just say, hey, step back, let me take care of myself, do my nails or go take a hot bath. I love getting massages
Hmm.
and yeah, or just doing the basics like go out for dinner for yourself and just relax and enjoy life. People don't take for granted that they woke up in the day and just breathing, not realizing that there's a lot of other people that didn't.
Hmm.
So it's great to it's you're right, it's great to stay grounded.
Yeah, yeah, I
Now,
agree.
it might be a heavy question, but looking ahead, what kind of cultural conversations about your work might you be helping to create? Are you in the now, or do you think of the things you like to touch on that would help kind of better, you know, the future?
Yeah, so I have conversations on my podcast for example of the future and humanity as we look at it. And one of the things I'm very vocal about is us as a society being comfortable with our sexuality. And also I feel like too something that as a society we need to come to terms with is male sexuality. Like it's something that we don't always feel comfortable addressing. It's still taboo. People still view it as nasty and is I mean it's a part of being human. I really think that part of the a lot of the problems we have in society centers around people not being comfortable with sexuality and talking about it and addressing it. And I personally believe that if we want to move forward with society, we have to talk about sexuality and we have to address our sexual desires. I mean, I talk to people and I'm not going to, go into detail, but I talk to people who publicly preach against what I do in private. They indulge. I mean, or politicians. I talk to them, and a lot of people are still ashamed of who they are and what they're into, and that builds up. You know, that people take their frustrations out on other people, and if we want to move forward, then we're gonna have to be honest about sex and what it looks like, and yeah.
Yeah, all the forms of it. Now,
Mhm.
I'm interested. Have you ever dealt with a situation where the significant other, so mainly most likely it's probably be the wife or the girlfriend, who
Mhm.
have don't have an issue with what their significant other is doing, and maybe they're even into it or anything like that. So have
Mhm.
you kind of come across something like that where it's like, okay, or like they would say, hey, oh, my man likes you, and I'm glad he's spending some time or
Yeah.
doing something like that kind of support, so what has been your experience in that?
Yeah, like I have, so typically with that, and I'm not saying it's like an economic thing, but I mean, from what I've seen, there are times where, I mean, I have couples who contact me and say, oh, we watch your video together. I'll have them like switch in the chat together, and like they'll like tell me, oh, yeah, last night, we watched the video that you made and we had so much fun having sex, and thank you so much for making your content and making our lives so much more exciting. I've cam with couple. I do cam shows with couples, and they'll have fun on their end, and I'll be on the other. And then I have, when it comes to what I was saying about the economic thing, like usually what I see, and I'm not saying it's across the board, but usually like with high profile customers, their wives know, like they'll have some sort of agreement that, this is what you're into. I don't feel comfortable doing it. So this is your outlet of doing it. So as long as you let me know and how you're doing it. So a part of that too is communication and just being transparent, which honestly, most people should just be honest with what they're watching. Like, yes, I do think there are women who shut men down about porn, but I do think there are men who should just be honest and just, tell them, because you never know how someone's going to react. And, you know, you can't always determine the outcome of that, but like honestly, but yeah, I do get couples who know about me and their wives know, that their husbands are camming with me, and it's just a transparent kind of thing.
Yeah, that's for me that I see that a lot where certain women in relationships, they're quick to go to say, okay, same thing. What a man would tell himself, they would outwardly say, like, oh, what, I'm not good enough for you? Like, or this,
Yeah,
but it's like, well, it's not about that,
exactly.
Desires can go outside of the relationship in the sense of wanting to fulfill something.
Right. It's and I'm gonna be 100% honest, and I know some people may not agree, but it's an insecurity thing. Like if somebody thinks somebody doesn't want them because they watch porn, like it's not even about that. Like someone may just be into something and they just need an outlet, or they just want to explore. And honestly, I'm gonna be honest, like that's one of the reasons why a lot of my customers don't open up to their partners, because a lot of women are not, even me prior to doing this, are not comfortable with ourselves being sexual beings. And so we view it as nasty. So then when they see their partner doing it, they think they're nasty and disgusting, because that's how we feel about ourselves. And that a big part of it is being insecure. I mean, I don't even want my customers, like, it's not even like, they're paying for an experience, and I don't talk to them again, but I know not all of them see it that way.
No, that's a good perspective because you have a unique position, and what you see, and a lot of it is very candid. It's very private. It's like almost because I was gonna mention it before with like I don't know if you ever seen that a long time ago with Taxi Cab Confessions on HBO.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like people open up more to someone who they don't know as closely because it's like, okay, is there's always a fear of being judged.
Hmm.
and it's always on both ends. And I've learned a lot that, especially with couples, is like, okay, you guys are mirroring yourselves. Same thing with me and my wife. It's like we do things like that, and we are getting better at it. But it's always like if I'm in some space and I'm like, wait, okay, like she feels like that too, and then it kind of brings me back to be like, okay, let me connect. And I think couples should do that more, especially in the intimacy sort of space. So yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, for listeners who feel connected or curious by this conversation, where can they learn more about what you do?
Sure. If they want to check out my podcast, they can visit designyourdreamgirl.com. I have a link there, or they can check out Spicy Spectrum on all audio streaming platforms. I'm not on camera for it, so it's they just hear my voice. And if they want to have a fantasy fulfillment, they can visit designyourdreamgirl.com. That's my main hub. Or if they want to follow me on social media or contact me or just check out me on TikTok or anything like that, that's my main hub for both my podcast and my fantasy fulfillment. So
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Guys, visit Miss Cat. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Thank you for giving me your time. I'm sure this type of show is something that's kind of out of your wheelhouse, but I'm glad you gave me your time and space to have this discussion with me. And thank you so much for being on my show.
Sure. Thank you for having me and listening to me and my perspective. I know
Absolutely.
sometimes people aren't comfortable, but I appreciate you for having me and being open.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Meet Logan, the strong-minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strengthen their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. That was a wonderful episode. Now let me take it from here, if you don't mind, good sir. This conversation may have made you pause, smile, or think a little deeper. That's the damn point. Pepper reminds us that curiosity is healthier than judgment and awareness is more powerful than shame. We all want connection, honesty, and to feel seen. So take this with you. You're allowed to explore who you are, ask better questions, and grow without guilt. Stay curious, stay kind to yourself, and remember, understanding yourself is always a step forward. Adelante siempre por tu mente. Forward always for your mind. This is the FYI I Am Damaged podcast.